Hello everybody, welcome back. Today's October 8th and we're doing government and security stories that you can share with your friends. Or don't. I'm not a cop. Do what you want.
No, you should.
Share with your friends, but...
Store.level1.
I mean, you should share the video with your friends. The
Right.
stories, who cares about?
It's just more bad news, as is typical.
That's right. It might not make you any friends because a lot of people don't want to hear this stuff, but it's out there and we need to talk about it. And we need to talk about the FBI, who, how many times in the past have we seen them brag openly about how easy they
We can get into any phone.
No. This is exactly following the formula. The formula is, oh no, we need more to make it easier. And then 2 days later, it's like, we got in.
Well, I think there's an element, that's probably true, but I think there's an element here of we don't really want to get into this phone because it's going to be embarrassing for power.
The feds still can't get into Eric Adams' phone, according to The Verge. If you don't know, that's the mayor of New York. Well, former mayor of New York. He's been brought up on some charges. There may have been some corruption there. It's certainly looking like this is going to be an interesting trial. But they're saying, oh, he changed his password. He forgot what it was. And so they can't get in.
He changed his password the day that he found out his electronics were being seized, which he found out beforehand. Why did he do that? To prevent other people in his office from trying to get into his phone before the feds could look at it, to make sure the data was, conserved.
That sounds like an amazing, like the lawyer cleared that excuse.
Why would the people in his office be able to get into his phone at all?
Listen, we just got to give it to the Israelis. They'll get in fine.
I do like the idea that, it was just incompetence, like, oh, I forgot. Who hasn't done that?
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to prove he's lying?
I've never forgotten the passcode on my phone.
Yeah, they'll get in a few days if they want in. Because this is how the playbook always is. It's like, oh, we need a tool to open this. No, you don't.
Well, we need some tools to fix things, and we don't get them. And this is a story that just keeps going on and on. But maybe there's a gotcha here in the fine print.
Another headline for The Verge, John Deere is accused of excluding the right to repair language in its manuals, which is apparently required by the Clean Air Act by saying you have options for repairing your tractor. And John Deere's like, no, you must call us.
There's a big statement here from John Deere and
The John Deere?
Yeah.
John himself.
John himself, yeah.
And yeah, so she points out the law says no such information shall be withheld. So John Deere wants you, they're saying, hey, with the emission stuff, it's really complicated. We need to do a software reset. And obviously you can't do that yourself. You can't be trusted with that. So we have to do this. And Elizabeth Warren says, we literally wrote this law that says you can't do that. In the past, John Deere seems to always win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, we've passed a lot of laws at the state level that are like, you have to support right to repair, but they always fight it.
It's unfortunate. Of course, that would be a nice little, wedge to say, well, if you can do this for emissions, why can't you do this for everything else?
Also, there are human beings that are working at John Deere, but
Allegedly.
It's just John.
If you work on this, I mean, it is very hard. You would have to look at this and say, well, I have to do this in order to have a job. So I'm going to argue on behalf of why John Deere should get money from farmers to do stuff.
Well, the people making this argument aren't the people doing the work.
Yeah. It's still sad, though.
And we had the big Disney terms of service. Did you follow up on that? I don't remember how that played out. I think
Disney dropped the requirement.
Oh, that's right.
Graciously.
Yeah.
I think they did that only because they got so much press, though.
But it was also because
a judge did not rule on that.
They didn't want to set the precedent, obviously. Yeah. But also there was some sort of caveat, right? Like they had signed up for something, but it was not.
It was Disney Plus.
The person in question.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was just a free trial for Disney Plus, no less.
That is now a thing.
A court has blocked a couple from suing Uber over a crash, citing terms and conditions. And this was the terms and conditions in Uber Eats, apparently, but they say that it was their daughter that agreed to that, not them, which is an interesting defense and seems perfectly valid. But nevertheless, it's going to tie up their court case in red tape.
Also interesting that Uber Eats and Uber, are those the same entity?
I mean, they both have the same name and the same branding. I would assume so, but maybe not.
Nothing stops lawyers from making absurd arguments. Anything to slow things down.
Well, this is not just, this was an appeals court. threw this out. Like they got ruled against because of that, and they appealed, and the appeals court said, no, you agreed to arbitration.
Yay, arbitration.
Yay for Uber. Not so yay for the rest of us.
Maybe think twice before you use Uber for anything.
TechCrunch got a new layout.
How you feel about it?
I like it overall. There's a couple little things that I would maybe tweak, but
You should critique it after the story. So last week we had a slurry of California laws, and kind of amazingly, Gavin Newsom just went wild with the veto stamp and didn't tolerate them.
Governor Gavin Newsom has vetoed California's controversial AI bill SB 1047. We covered this last week, but there's a lot more coherent thought about that in this TechCrunch article.
So he's saying it was too aggressive and it ruled every part of AI and not just the dangerous stuff. But how do we know?
how do you make that
dangerous.
distinction?
We've got another article that suggests even AI-generated parody would have been made illegal under this.
That was a different law.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this one would definitely have been controversial. This might just be like election year stuff, right? Because this would make people angry, and you don't even have to look that far into it. The headline would make you angry.
California governor vetoes bill requiring speeding alerts in new cars. This is only a 35 mile per hour zone. Do you know that?
What do we do with this? It is just beep all the time. Like, it doesn't even slow you down. It just beeps at you constantly. And it's like, don't do that.
Well, some of them, they wanted to have the force feedback in the pedal.
Yeah, which I feel like would also be terrible. But
Also, they already do that for your seatbelts. It's like, that's not a person in the chair. That's a computer.
also annoying.
You
Yeah.
should buckle it in. That's not a person.
This is the one you were referring to in terms of
right.
AI stuff.
Federal judge stops implementation of California misinformation law. So this one didn't have to be vetoed, but it's like, who decides what's misinformation? And the guy that runs the Babylon Bee apparently is part of this lawsuit, or the origin of this lawsuit.
It's a different one.
They pointed out that, hey, computer-generated parody, also illegal.
This was a different guy.
Yeah, this person made like AI videos of, I think it was Harris, but like using a voice that sounded like her. And so it's like,
Parody.
yeah. And it's like, is it like, how do you make it clear it's parody when we live in such a weird time?
And turns out the Supreme Court has already ruled on parody in the past. So this judge was just like, hey, we can't do this. I'm sure it will happen eventually, though.
I also like that everybody involved in these has apparently not seen any of the AI-generated memes because they're amazing.
Well, I think they've seen them, and I think they don't like them. I think they recognize that's going to happen to me someday.
I like the effectiveness of communicating absurdity of the situation via AI memes. Like,
The problem is like the absurdity and the realness are like too close together now, and then it becomes hard to tell what's parody and what's not.
The realness.
well,
you know, reality. Yeah, sorry.
well, I mean, think about our John Deere story. It's like in Soviet Russia, the John Deere tractor repairs you, and it's just like,
The Uber story feels like parody, right?
Yeah, but it's real, and so it's like it's hard to define reality if it's like constantly we're moving the line.
was it Douglas Adams that had the door that was a subscription-based door, and you had to give it a nickel every time you went in through the door?
The drink verification can, 4chan green text. Everyone laughed at that 10 years ago, and that's where we are now. It was parody at the time, but it gets more and more realistic.
But that's what they want, right? They want to be able to define truth and reality. And that's everything wrong with them.
Well, eventually it'll just reach a point where it's like, oh, that's fake. Everything's fake.
We say they, but to define what they is,
The people that wrote that law. That's easy.
we know corporations. Corporations increasingly have sort of a sociopathic relationship with your wallet, which is, it's like you will have to do this labor in order to do this thing. It's like, what if I don't want to participate in any of this? Can I just buy a tractor and have a tractor to work my land? It's like, no, we have to enter into a contractual relationship with John Deere. And it's like, I'm not comfortable.
I don't like John.
I'm not comfortable with this level of relationship. Like, do I have to be like a hermit?
But see, Elizabeth Warren's on both sides of that. Because that EPA stuff is what arms them to lock us into that. It's like, no, you're evil. You want to poison the world. We can't let you have a tractor.
In any other context, this would be racketeering. Like, this is literally the definition of what racketeering is all of these large, powerful entities colluding together. Is it not?
Well, I mean, we're going to get into property tax here. How far you want to go? Speaking of your property and the government not being able to just come in there and take whatever they want, that's another thing that California might disagree with a little bit.
Electrek's headline is bidirectional charging may now be required on EVs soon due to a new California law. Electrek does correctly point out that this law has been watered down a bunch from its original version, but the vision here from lawmakers is that California's power grid has been so corrupted by exactly the type of big business and corporate interests that we're complaining about, it is fragile and horrible. And one thing that could shore it up is if everybody's EVs are plugged in, when the grid starts to get a little shaky, your EV could be one of millions participating in propping up the grid, which will no doubt lead to those companies saying, gosh, we've got all these individuals' vehicles that are propping up the power grid. We should take this as a sign that we need to build up the power grid. Certainly that's what will happen.
No.
Yeah, and the requirement meaning that if you get that built into your home, you don't have a choice. You don't get to say, no, I want my power to stay in my car. If the grid needs it, the grid takes it.
Take your milkshake.
I think this kind of thing is completely okay as long as it's voluntary.
It's not.
But yeah, California's power grid is also a symptom of a larger problem of corruption and poor infrastructure planning. Like, if you think of your grandparents and your great-grandparents as like salt of the earth people, they would never have tolerated a power grid that has this level of dysfunction. It would have been shameful and therefore corrected.
Well, it might be corrected, but it's not because of the people suffering. Because, I mean, how long have we been talking about the broken power grid? And, you know, Texas, we just had our fun little hurricane adventure, even though we're a landlocked state.
And it just, well, yeah, it's terrible.
Wrecked us. The Carolinas right now.
Yeah.
They're in bad shape.
It's been clear for a very long time that the power grid needs more. We should be putting our collective resources, you know, those things that they make us pay every year, into that. But no, we don't get that. Until now we do, but it's not because we need it.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan nuclear plant finalizes federal loan to support first reactor restart in U.S. history.
2025. Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Turnaround.
I was under, like, haven't we been told in the past, it's like, oh, a nuclear reactor, no, it takes forever. You can never get one started.
Well, they said this one closed down in 2022, so it's not, I don't know, is it still warm? Like, I don't know enough about.
There's going to be a lot of rats in there.
They're
ghosts.
I don't know why, but the whole time I was reading this, I was thinking, I wonder if this is the alignment of corporate interests or the fact that the people that participated in this tried to make it as easy as possible to restart the reactor. Because, you know, I know through the, like, we have and had 3 coal-fired power reactors in our area, and they shut down 2 of them because we didn't need power, you know, 10 or 15 years ago. And one of them ended up staying online because the collective, like, the mindset around here is, why would we ever turn that off? Like, we might need that in the future. We should just keep it on standby. It was they were converted from coal to natural gas. And then one of them only stayed online because they were selling power cheap to Bitcoin miners in order to keep it online. And now it's like, oh, we actually need a lot more power because AI and everything else is using a lot more power than it was 10 years ago. And all the forecasts were wrong. And we would have been in bad shape to rebuild it. But this and all the other stuff, I can't help but think that some of these funds may have known that, hey, if we do get to a point where we need more power, it's going to drive the price up and we're going to have a better margin on the power we do have to sell. Therefore, this is an amazing interest that we have. But now we're restarting nuclear because there literally will not be enough electricity at any price. See also Texas.
Yeah, it's 100% because of AI. They would not have done it otherwise.
Screw the people. If they have to have a couple power outages, if grandma can't have her oxygen machine for a couple days, that's fine. But AI not having power, unacceptable.
Just related to that, I mean, it's not a tech story, I didn't add it, but they just announced that FEMA does not have enough money to support hurricane relief.
I mean, to be fair, North Carolina, parts of it were just kind of like wiped off the map.
But we just gave $16 billion for war.
Some of the money for war, though, is stuff that we already paid for and is sitting around a warehouse. And the money that's...
You know what? Saudi Arabia would love to have that. Let's sell it. Give the money to North Carolina.
Didn't the Republicans all vote against the FEMA like expansion as well.
A bake sale for whatever. I want to know what FEMA has spent money on other than tornado relief, because that's probably also horrifying.
We're not allowed to talk about that. Yeah, there's another big line in that that bill.
I don't actually know. I wasn't making a joke. I was just like, let's just go look at that, and then it's just like, oh
yeah, go look at it.
Oh Lord, we tried. It's just like just reasonable people trying to be reasonable, and it gets exhausting. That's the theme this week, by the way, is reasonable people trying to be reasonable, and it's exhausting.
Who's trying to be reasonable?
The software story that we have later, where the guy that wrote the thing that everybody knows what Apollo is suffering needlessly at the hands of Apple.
Well, Texas is one of those states that has power issues, probably self-inflicted, but still, they need to be fixed. But they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on the thing that most politicians have been focusing on for a while, that maybe not that big a deal.
Texas sues TikTok for violating children's privacy.
Can we just change this to everybody's privacy? Like, again, why do, children should have some extra protections, but like, can't we all just have some privacy, please?
Children's protections should be their caretakers.
The amazing thing about this is if lawmakers get this kind of thing right, applications do have to build in privacy protections for children. Flipping a switch to enable adults to have the same functionality would be easy from a technical standpoint.
Well, from a technical standpoint. From a legal standpoint, that would be 10 years of appeals. And we've all made the argument, especially with the TikTok thing, it's like, well, what is TikTok doing that's any different from every other social media platform? And Arkansas agrees, at least in one case.
Arkansas sues YouTube over claims that the site is fueling a mental health crisis among younger, not young adults, but teenagers and younger children, I guess. And this is because of the algorithm and like feeding engagement, dopamine hit, that whole thing. You're certainly not watching this program for the dopamine hit, but...
Maybe they are. Maybe they love our lovely personalities.
I think it's really more about commiseration. It's like reasonable people trying to be reasonable.
Have you read the comments? There's not a lot of reason going on.
There's a lot of people looking at the comments saying, I'm not going to participate in that because of the unreasonableness.
That's how I approach every social media, right? So it's like, oh, I know.
I do love, this is the trash in me, but I love to read comments, though. I don't always read them on, like, every video that we do, but, like, I love just going into a controversial topic and then reading everybody argue.
Everyone here is unreasonable.
It's very interesting to see human interaction in comments. But we've lost that, right? And if you were in Russia, you're going to lose just a little bit more of it.
Russia gears up to ban Discord in the coming days. So it turns out you can't use that for military operations either. They learned that the hard way a while ago. The net is closing.
I saw that sub-headline the other day, and I was like, come on.
So they have apparently done some dry runs. People have complained. It's like, hey, Discord, why is everything broken? And Discord's like, I don't know. It's weird. There's no traffic in the country.
Have you guys considered paying for Nitro?
So the assumption is that will be gone soon. Make your backup plans. What's the open source chat server?
IRC.
Is IRC still around?
It's not voice, though. Well, it used to be Mumble. Is Mumble still around?
Yeah, Mumble's still around. TeamSpeak, they're hanging on.
And oh boy, now let me take a little victory lap here, because I've always advised everybody, do not put bumper stickers on your car. It's one of the dumbest things that you can do. You got to take the Sun Tzu approach here. Do not give your enemies any information about yourself that you don't have to. And if you think that I was just being paranoid.
License plate readers are creating US-wide database of more than just cars. Yeah.
So we got bumper stickers and yard political signs. If you have one of those, you are in a database, and it has been tied to your advertising and government profile.
Also, your driver's license database. So consider how easy this is. You have access to this database commercially. You have access to the California drivers. They were just, was that wrong? Should I not have done that? Selling the driver's license database, although we know other states are doing that as well. And then you have Visa, MasterCard building the mega databases of credit card transactions and retailer transactions down to the individual items. They don't just know that you bought some stuff at Costco. They know what you bought at Costco. Well, maybe not Walmart, because they're Walmart and a couple other retailers. But a lot of the time they do actually have an itemized list, and that all goes into the database. And then from that, you can build a very effective profile for whatever purpose, nefarious or otherwise, that you might have in mind.
Almost a complete profile. And like you say, completely outside the realm of any sort of oversight. This is just things that you can purchase, cobble together. This company's already doing that, so you don't have to do it yourself. You can pay for the service. There is perhaps one thing they don't have yet, but it's going to be privatized very soon.
Remember that DNA that you gave to 23andMe? That's kind of for sale right now because the company is trying to figure out what to do with itself. So you may not have even submitted your own DNA, but maybe you have a family member that has. And so even if they don't have a complete profile of your DNA, they probably got fragments.
As far as I know, no one directly related to me has done this, but someone I know through marriage has. And it's like, that means I'd probably show up on a family tree somewhere.
Fabulous.
MSN has fixed their auto suggest. If you don't know, I'm controlling it with this keypad, and it's 5 and 0. So putting the 5 in, you remember it used to do the, and you couldn't see the headline. So they fixed it. Now one character doesn't trigger it, but 50 does because 50 Cent. And Kia. Oh, Kia.
Disappointing.
How could Kia have a worse embarrassment than they previously had? It's almost like they're trying.
Ars Technica's headline is a flaw in Kia's web portal let researchers track and hack cars, including the car of a security researcher that showed up to this meeting for them to disclose, hey, something weird is going on. You just need you just need a license plate number. So you could, they went to a dealership and they just scanned the tags, the dealership tags, and the web portal let them in.
Well, it didn't let them in, but the API endpoints did not authenticate. So once they used it a little bit and found out what those endpoints were, they were able to pass it the license plate that they looked at, and it worked in every vehicle tested.
Wow.
And the vehicle knew its position, its GPS coordinates. So it's like, hey, where is this Kia? Here you go.
No control of the engine or anything. They couldn't stop the car, but they could track you indefinitely, and they could control some of the bells and whistles inside the car, which is interesting. It's been fixed, but
it's Kia, so.
But why was that network built in the first place?
For the dealers. It was to make the things more convenient on the lots, because we want to do something to all the cars or whatever, just put the license plate in.
So where's the plastic tab that I have to pull to turn that off?
You have to remove the radio.
Fine.
And Meta has their smart glasses. This is not the Orion ones that we talked about last week. This is the previous Ray-Ban version. Some college kids at Harvard have had these, and they said, you know what? These are dystopian, horrible future things. Let's show that off.
Students adapt Meta's smart glasses to dock strangers in real time.
Some kind of interactive theater art piece.
I'm making this up, but Meta responded, that's against the terms of service. These sunglasses, they just take a picture. But they did something far more horrifying. There was just a rando stranger at a bus stop. And so they asked the glasses, like, hey, do you recognize that person? It's like, oh, yeah, I found their random social media profile. They weren't anybody famous or anything, but, they posted online. And they were part of some social club somewhere. And so the person walked up to them and was like, oh, hey, Betty, do I recognize you from whatever? She was like, oh, yeah, hey, how's it going? And it's just like, oh, this is not good.
So they didn't give us details, but they did point out that this is all open software and public databases that they used. So this could be easily recreated. If you don't think that the NSA already does this, you're insane.
Has been doing this for years.
Oh, yeah. And now it's in the hands of the people. Now they did, Meta, it's interesting what you just said, because Meta kind of did say that.
Yeah.
And Meta was like, look, they're using other stuff. They admit it. This is not the glasses. Don't blame the glasses.
The glasses just make it easier to do it covertly. Though one could argue, because I have done this, where I meet someone and then I'm like, I want to know more about them, and then I stalk them for half an hour on social media. So I guess you could technically do that, but the glasses make it a magnitude easier.
Does that take the joy out of it for you?
Yeah, it's like, I enjoy the detective work. Yeah.
It's interesting that Apple is also building these kind of features into their next generation operating systems, but it's a lot more subtle. So like with Apple iPhones, like if you just touch two iPhones together, you can share your contact card. So like if you have a social media presence that you want to project, you could put that in that stuff, and so that would be what somebody finds when you share it with them. It's like, oh, if you're gonna stalk somebody, it's like, here's all my stuff, and
Here's all my appropriate stuff.
yeah. So
Also, the glasses have an LED on the front that alerts people when you are recording. Although I imagine this doesn't have to take constant recordings,
No.
probably just snapshots. But it will be blinking. And they say that if you cover that up, the glasses know and they won't function. You think that's just like a photoresistor or something in
Probably.
there? Just make a little tiny LED that
yeah,
we could market that. It would be evil, but we could do that.
that sounded like somebody was just hitting the crosswalk.
It's like a dog, maybe?
I don't know.
There was
like
a
a
yelp.
siren.
Oh, is that
It was like a meow, and then it stopped abruptly. I don't know if the mics picked that up, but
let's hope that's not evidence in a case coming up.
we need to take this episode of the news and analyze it.
And Meta, you know, you would think that considering how often people try to get into other people's Facebook accounts, that they would take security maybe a little more seriously.
Meta stored 600 million Facebook and Instagram passwords in plain text. This is more like a logging oopsie than it intentionally storing them in plain text, but yeah.
There's an internal tool, but pretty much anybody who's an engineer at Facebook had access to it. So if you were a Facebook engineer and a stalker, you know, maybe you got like an ex-girlfriend or
The
something.
Venn diagram, yeah.
You want to keep tabs on her, going to be real convenient for you to just jump in there.
It sounded like that it didn't even dawn on them that when they were capturing just the raw transactional data, that it was like, oh yeah, the passwords are in there. Oops. This is a common pattern of things that happen. Sometimes advertising agencies will just throw JavaScript on a page like, capture anything the user types. Well, capture a password.
I don't think this was what was going on there, though, right? It was just literally logging the password input somewhere.
Yeah, well, I think that's how they were doing that. Is they were just logging everything going into this API, and it was like, oops, yeah. Sometimes there's sensitive stuff we shouldn't log.
I bet somebody raised their hand. Now, it's interesting because we look at the John Deere thing and the Uber thing, and you think like, well, us poor peons, you know, we can never fight against this. But no, the major evil corporations use these same tactics amongst themselves, sometimes to hilarious effect.
NSO should lose spyware case for discovery violations, Meta says. This is something we've been following for years. It has been running for years. Meta is saying that these folks got access to their systems surreptitiously and through hacking means and through compromising their app. And they want to know more. And the NSO group has just played games with them in court and demonstrably been dishonest. And it doesn't matter because they're an intelligence apparatus. But Meta's like, no, this is the only course we have to deal with this.
Interestingly, what they want is code. They want to know how the thing works. And of course, NSO can't admit that because it's almost surely illegal. One of their defenses was that Israeli law prevents them from giving it to us. So Israeli has a law that says they can spy?
It's probably a government secret, like, you know, the Government Secrets Act kind of thing.
But the NSO group is not the Israeli government, right?
Weird.
That Venn diagram might just be one circle.
So, yeah, it's not been ruled on yet, but Meta should win that case.
Wow, did we not get paywalled on Bloomberg? What a
This
time
is
to be
Bloomberg
alive.
law.
Oh.
They don't paywall. Yeah.
Interesting.
And if you are an Office 365 user, you got to watch out.
Crooks made millions by breaking into execs' Office 365 inboxes, the feds say. So, couldn't help but notice suspicious trades. Some people made a lot of money on the stock market. It's almost like they had inside knowledge. But they weren't insiders. They were people that just had access to executives' mailboxes. They didn't do anything directly malicious, but they used the information that was in the inboxes in order to make advantageous trades on the stock market.
Well, they changed the password reset policy and forwarded all mails to themselves. I think that counts as intrusion and maliciousness, no matter how you look at it. Even without the insider trading, I think I would feel a little violated.
I guarantee you there's at least a couple that just didn't do anything other than read and make some decisions based on what they read.
3.7 million, right? This dude made just by knowing ahead of time. So he was making big trades. He got too greedy, right? You got to play it real gentle. You got to make a couple of trades that might be losers or break evens too, you know, just to muddy the waters. And it's back. I know we're all excited.
Controversial Windows Recall AI search tool returns with proof of presence encryption, data isolation, and I think the most disturbing feature of the demo is that it will read the screen to you and explain it.
I don't want you to read my screen.
It doesn't work on quote-unquote sensitive content, so...
Right, that's the caveat. They're like, you know what? Everybody will be okay with this if we don't let it look at incognito browsers.
So that means I have to use incognito mode all the time.
You can never get your history.
What's wild about that is that under the hood, that's not implemented in like, oh, there's an API to know that this information should be private. No. That relies on the AI looking at it and saying, oh, I recognize that as a private browser window. I shouldn't talk about that. Not that it doesn't recognize it or that it's excluded from its vision. It's just been told, don't talk about that.
Now, they did make some concessions. It's opt-in now. It's not on by default yet. I mean,
well, yeah, how long of the one update they're going to change that?
Yeah, that will be changed in a future update, I'm sure.
Would you like OneDrive?
No, I don't. I still don't want OneDrive. Please, never.
They claim it can be permanently uninstalled now.
Again, until the next update.
Just like Internet Explorer.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate. Windows 11 they just keep making it impossible to use, right?
In the next episode, we'll talk about how Steam is quietly injecting lots of money into the Linuxes to try to give us something that's not Windows.
Steam PR is, well, it's not even PR, right? It's just that they're not doing what everybody else is doing, and it makes them so great.
Yeah. Good story.
You should definitely tune in for that.
See you in the next one. Bye.